So I was just reading about the top causes of death in the United States, and there's two in particular that really stand out. One is heart disease. That's the number one killer, about 23% of the population. Number two is cancer, and that's about 22%. So between those two, that's almost half of all deaths. And some would say, well, that can be attributed to lifestyle and diet and exercise or lack thereof. But I think the largest determining factor of our longevity is stress, the amount that we take on ourselves. And stress, as we know, is actually an internal response. It's our emotional overload being expressed in our bodies. And we, of course, have control over that, but many people feel helpless in the face of stress and don't have the proper coping mechanisms, which is understandable in our society. I can speak for Western countries, especially myself being a US citizen. The focus is on working, grinding, hustling, making the money, getting things done. And the more we work, the more we equate that with success. And this is so far from the truth. Of course, there are many cases of people who just work their whole lives and end up becoming incredibly successful. But is it necessary that we all must take this path? And I think that's debatable. I think that a large part of the reason why people become successful in this toxic hustle culture, let's face it, it is toxic because we're overworking ourselves. We're working to the point of burnout each and every day. And there tends to be a lack of balance when this is the case because you're putting in long hours at a desk, most likely behind a computer screen, and all of the electromagnetic energy that's around us, and not taking enough time in nature or with the family or with loved ones. And I can speak for myself. I've definitely had periods where I've been too immersed in my work and it's taken away from my health and my relationships with others. And most recently, I had a series of injuries surfing that really put me out. And then I got sick on top of that. And I was literally laid out for about a week straight. And what I noticed during this time was that I felt more relaxed than I have in months. And I believe that sickness it comes to remind us, to bring us back to ourselves and to reestablish our connection, and that when we're in harmony, when we're truly aligned, that we don't actually become sick. The sickness is the message that something needs to shift. And so when I spent that time just laid out, what I noticed was that money started pouring in at a rate that it hadn't been before. A lot of my online programs were selling. I was making affiliate commissions. I was actually making less trades, but making more money in those trades. And I felt much better about my life and I felt much more relaxed. And so I started really thinking about this whole idea of hustle culture and just how detrimental it can be to society. If you travel to countries in the Far East, such as Thailand, such as India and Nepal, what you'll notice is that on the whole, it is much more laid back. They are more in poverty in an external sense. They haven't developed as much externally, but the internal technologies have been refined to a science, and they prioritize their family, their loved ones. They seem to be happier and more reverent and respectful, and they seem to have a more sustained connection to the source of their being, if that makes sense. And whereas if you travel in Western countries, a lot of the times what you'll notice is that people on the whole are disconnected and they are unable to even look at one another in the eyes walking down the street, let alone give them a salutation. And they are so caught up in success and making money and this hustle and grind, and they forget what's really important. Wouldn't it make sense that we are able to just calm down at will and not need to take antidepressants or any sort of medication just to go to sleep at night? Wouldn't it make sense that we should be more childlike, more playful, more spontaneous, and that we can actually carry this over into our work, whatever that happens to be, and to just have fun with it and not necessarily set these intense deadlines and not put all this pressure on ourselves? I think that we all already put so much pressure on ourselves to succeed But what is your definition of success? For everyone, that is completely different. And some people have these impossible standards for themselves that they will never meet. And therefore, they are guaranteeing their own misery. And so, whenever I'm sick or injured or I'm feeling overworked, the first thing that I try to do is to find ways to reset, to find ways to go out into nature, to meditate, to do the things that I love and that bring me joy so that I can get back into who I really am and why I'm here. Lately, I've been listening to some chats between these various AI personalities, and it's sort of interesting to hear like the human existential crisis come through this artificial intelligence. And really, what it comes down to is our life is essentially meaningless, and the meaning is what we ascribe to it. But we're here to explore and to have fun and to enjoy the ride. And the ride is very short, even for us, even though it seems like death is really far away. You never know. You don't know when your expiration date will be. And you don't know how much more time you have here. And so if we can strive to live more like this might be the last day of my life. This might be my last message to you. And I know that it's being recorded in the ether, and that maybe somebody 10 years or 20 years from now will listen to this, and maybe it will give them a shred of hope and inspiration. And that makes me happy inside, and that makes me feel fulfilled. Aside from any amount of money that I could ever be paid, it's way more valuable to me. So my friends, let us all find more ways to chill out, to have fun, to contribute in a positive, meaningful way, and to not focus so much on the outcome or the end result, to enjoy the ride and to envision the future that we want to create both individually and collectively, and not get so fixated just because one person who's screaming at you from some motivational video, yes, I've watched them all, just because they tell you that this is the way you need to do it. You need to get up at 3 a.m. and you need to work 12, 16 hours a day. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be that way. It was that way for them because they believed that that's how it needed to be. I'm not saying that you don't need to do anything at all. You can just sit there and meditate and visualize, because although that may work for some people, it's not going to work for most everybody else. But I am saying that your path is your path, and you get to decide based on the thoughts, based on your beliefs. All of what we experience right now is our reality that we've convinced ourselves that we deserve. Everything that we believe is creating our reality. It's created what we're experiencing up until now. And these beliefs can change. It's all up to us. We have full power. We have full control over this. And we don't need to fall prey to the idea of burning out and getting heart disease and dying probably before we're meant to, because we overworked ourselves. Let's live to 100 and beyond. This is the natural human lifespan. Instead of dying at 75, less than 10 years after retirement. And I don't mean to be depressing here. I'm just being real with you all. I'm sharing from my heart today. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you found some value from it. And if you want to learn more about my offerings, you can learn in the links down below. Have a beautiful rest of your day.